Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween, Silver Shamrock. Happy, happy Halloween, Halloween, Halloween. Happy, happy Halloween.
Oh, hey guys. Happy Halloween. So you can tell that this Halloween is kind of unusual because for the most part we're gonna have to celebrate it inside due to you know what's going on outside. But so you can tell we cannot do a lot of some usual stuff that we could do, you know, during that festivity. You know, going out, trying to get into parties, trick-or-treating, and everything. Luckily for us nerds, we still have some of our own ways to celebrate Halloween, which is none other than watching horror movies or horror specials. And this year is no exception. So, like always, this Halloween I'm gonna pick out 10 horror specials. It could be a movie, it could be a cartoon, it could be something that I just want. And I decided to pick it up at random. There's gonna be there's no order of which is good or which is bad. There is no rules. It's just 10 things that I pick up at random. And so you might be curious, what are the movies that I picked this year? Well, there's one way to find out. So hang on tight, guys, because here we go with the first movie that I see, and that is
부산으로 가는 KTX 406 열차가 곧 출발합니다.
저기요, 이상한 사람이 하나 타고 있는 것 같은데.
팀장님, 여기 11호차 응급 환자 발생했습니다.
뭐야? 꼼짝으로 착각했어? 알려주세요, 봐봐. 당신을 봐봐. 지금 무슨 일이 벌어지고 있는지 몰라? 우리 열차는 더 이상 부산으로 운행할 수가 없게 됐습니다.
leave it to Korea to depress me even more. Oh, well, Train to Busan, guys. I gotta be honest, guys, is that I don't have exactly kind of like the perfect relationship with Korean films. Mind me, it's not that I'm saying that Korea can't do movies, I would say. And most of the time, Korea are really good at making movies. But here's the problem that I have with them, is that almost every single time that I pick out a horror movie made in Korea, they always depress me the crap out of me. They're so depressing. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. But I do remember that once I saw this movie named The King of Pigs, I freaking hated this movie. Because that movie is one of the most depressing and mean-spirited films I have seen in my life. I hated this animated film. And guess what? I decided to pick The Train to Busan, at least to find out some foreign film. And well, I've been hearing people saying that is kind of good. Much to my horror, after I saw this movie, I was doing some investigation, and I find out that this movie is made for the same guy who created The King of Pigs. This guy follows me everywhere, and I don't know if I want to punch him, because let me tell you guys, this guy knows how to depress me. And Train to Busan is no exception. But let's put this aside, and let me say that Train to Busan is actually worth it. It's actually a good movie. Even though it is kind of like another one of those zombie epidemic films, this was actually well made. So, in order to talk to you about it, let me go with what is it about. Basically, the plot is about this guy. I'm not very good with Korean names, so I'm sorry if I don't speak their names about it. But basically, he is this financial guy, and the business guy, who has kind of like this really, really rocky relationship with his daughter. He kind of tried his best, but he's very selfish. He doesn't even understand it. It's kind of like the typical workaholic father who cares most about his work than his daughter. But he's even kind of like an extra step of douchiness to the Jim Carrey version of Liar Liar. But the thing is that he was technically forced to be with her to ride the train because she wants to see her mother on her birthday. So, and of course, the mother lives in the city of Busan. And lo and behold, once they get in the train, things happen. The zombie apocalypse happens, and I don't remember hitting one woman, but apparently one infected guy enters the train and begins to infect little by little all the people, and massacre happens. So yeah, this is basically the plot. People trapped on a train, and there's a zombie apocalypse. And it's funny that I was actually thinking that for some reason it reminded me of Snakes on a Plane, but instead of Snakes on a Plane, they're zombies. And I know that there is a movie that is about zombies on a plane, but maybe I'll watch it when I get the time. But basically, here's some of the elements that I'm gonna say. For a zombie movie, this is well done. It has some of the cliches that you're gonna find in zombie movies. I like that they don't hem it up too much. At least in the direction, they managed to make the movie more humanized than any B movie that you could ever find of zombies. First of all, because we have a good range of characters. We easily gonna hate our main protagonist because this is a really, really douchey father who he is really, really selfish, and most of the time he feels that when he wants to care for his daughter, he doesn't do it out of love. He just feels like it's just out of obligation, and he doesn't see it that. And basically, he just sees it more kind of like it usually makes kind of like this social commentary that salaryman just see people as income instead of caring for others, which puts in contrast with other characters in which the girl meets, which she meets this guy who has his wife who is pregnant, and well, this guy is practically rude, a little bit rude, really bit hot-headed. The guy is more of a family man than any businessman. He really loves his wife, and this couple actually treats the daughter kind of like a good neighbor, let's say, or kind of like a adopted daughter, and even though it's gonna be kind of like in a few moments. And yeah, also we got the daughter who she really, easily children can be kind of like the most annoying things in any horror movie. It's a good thing that she's not. She actually comes off as a very caring character, but also at the same time a very vulnerable character who she actually has some really strong points on her. Other character that you're gonna see in this movie is basically a homeless guy who sneaks into the into the train, but you see that he's traumatized of the horror that is going on. There is this couple of young high school baseball players who they're in the train because that they're kind of like a team, and of course the tragedy happens, and mostly because there's this guy who falls in love with his girlfriend, but he's too shy about it. And another character that also happened is technically the closest thing to antagonist, which is basically this old man who he's kind of like this smug rich business asshole who he's basically kind of like the darker side of our main protagonist, and boy that he is gonna be so easily to hate. Oh yeah, and there is this couple of elderly sisters too that they also have their own saga and everything. And yes, the movie is well done. The zombie types that you're gonna see are basically kind of like the rage virus type zombies. These are the zombies that they can run once you're scratched or bitten. Yeah, you're gonna get infected. It's probably one of the worst kinds of zombies you're gonna see. So in a sense, you're basically seeing like a Korean version of 28 Days Later, or the Korean version of the remake of Dawn of the Dead. And remember that I say that this movie is depressing? Well, it is, because the movie does indeed build out the characters so good and so meticulously that you really begin to care, even in a way where you're gonna follow up with the arc of even the most unlikable characters. And when tragedy happens, it happens. And of course, I'm not gonna reveal you exactly almost everything because that would be injustice about it. But I do remember that the ending really is really bitter, I'll say it. I don't know if I'm gonna say a bittersweet or bitter end, but I don't know what to say. I got this love-hate relationship with Korean films, and it's because of that guy. That guy gave me King of Pigs. I still hate this movie, but I'm gonna forgive him for Train to Busan, which is a good movie. Oh, by the way, yes, I also saw the prequel movie Seoul Station, which is animated, and it's also depressing.
It's time to make an appointment.
Scalpel.
It'll be good for your health.
Trust me, I'm a doctor.
Oh, sorry. The doctor's in. Sane.
How about a free examination? Get ready to take your medicine. If you think that's bad, wait till you get my bill. I hope you have protection.
Dr. Giggles.
Well, who doesn't like to go to the doctor? Well, I particularly don't like to go to the dentist. I don't have problem with other doctors at the moment. But how about a nice horror movie that makes you fear going to the doctor? Truth to be told, Dr. Giggles I found out while I was surfing the PlayStation Store. I found out this movie in which I saw the supposed trailer, which is actually the opening scene of the movie. But it got my attention enough to pick it for this Halloween. And you know what? This movie is actually kind of entertainment. It's not a great movie, but it's fine for what it is. A typical slasher film which follows technically the basic rules of slasher, and that's it. In this case, Dr. Giggles is about this mentally deranged doctor, well, doctor quote unquote, who escapes from the mental asylum, and then he goes to fulfill his mission, which is take over the deeds that his father was doing. In this case, we discover that this guy, who they call him Dr. Giggles, the thing is that when he was a kid, he had a father who was also a doctor, but then he became insane when his wife died. So he begins to hunt and kill victims in order to rip out their hearts and try to revive his wife. And of course, he becomes kind of like a town pariah, and they kill the guy, and of course the son escapes. I'll get to that just in case. But basically, yeah, the doctor returns to town, and he puts on the doctor cloak, and he just goes on a killing spree. And as for heroes, well, it mostly centers around this girl who is having kind of like a rocky relationship with her stepmother and the father, because she has this heart condition in which she doesn't like, and she's gonna have one of those routine operations, but she's very afraid, mostly because she lost her mother on one of those operations, and so she's traumatized by it. And of course she has, the boyfriend, her rival girlfriend, and other people who are mostly going to the meat grinder by this so-called Dr. Giggles. And yeah, you might be wondering why he's called Dr. Giggles. Well, easy, because the guy, he has the tendency to laugh it off whenever he makes his kill or he's attacked. Mostly he goes like and the movie is okay, I'll say. I heard that this movie is having a little bit of not a following, but people are becoming aware of it, and it's good. For what it is good for a typical slasher corny film from the 90s. I think it was 92 or 94 when this movie was made. And you're gonna notice some of the kills are actually, some of them are horrifying if you are cringy for from Doctor things, but a little bit gets kind of unintentionally funny when the Doctor he kind of has the tendency to spill out some of the most corniest Doctor one-liners you could ever imagine. I think that probably the worst death I can imagine in this movie has to do with probably the most deadliest case of stomach pumping that you could ever see. Oh my god, this is probably one of the worst deaths that I can think of this one. But I will say that there are some memorable moments of this movie. The opening scene is actually great, I'll say, because you'll see how the Doctor kind of make a surgery on one of his victims, and then you kind of realize that he released a lot of the mental patients in order to distract the doctors, and then he kills off some other people. It's kind of chilling, I'll say. But for the rest of the movie, there are two moments that I do have to talk about it, because these are probably the most memorable moments that I do have. In one scene is that he enters the house of this couple, in which this guy and this woman, they go to the room to have sex, and the girl has this little brother who is glued to the TV playing Dr. Mario. And we spent the whole moment having Dr. Giggles kill out this couple while the kid is just glued playing Dr. Mario. And you think that the Doctor is gonna kill off the kid, but no, he just watches the kid. The kid is like, he's kind of like so into Dr. Mario, and the Doctor, he's just terminal. If that was kind of like a slam to video gaming, saying that it's gonna wreck your brain, it was kind of unintentionally hilarious. That the guy just said that the kid is terminally ill because he played Dr. Mario. And yeah, it's obvious why I pick out Dr. Mario. But probably the biggest scene that I can imagine is when one of the characters, he begins to interrogate the old cop who basically tries to ignore the path of Dr. Giggles and his father. And he tells that he's a little bit traumatized because when he was younger, and when they kill off the father and they brought the dead wife to the morgue, he was on duty and then he begins to hear some kind of noise and laugh, and when he goes to the morgue, he sees the dead wife. And then this is where the shocking part happens. Then out of the blue, the young Dr. Giggles, as a kid, he was actually put inside the womb of the corpse of the mother, and then he scapes his way out of the mother, and he goes like, and he's just all bloody and mangled, and the guy, he's just traumatized. I mean, yeah, you will be traumatized if you see a psychotic kid coming out of the womb of a dead woman. That I'll leave it to your imagination. But still, again, there's a lot of corniness and a lot of slasher things to keep you entertaining. There is I will say that the ending kind of drags on a little bit off. So that's the basic thing I can say. So Dr. Giggles is kind of like a mild recommendation for me.
Hellraiser. Beyond any terror you have imagined. A nightmare. No. Unlike anything you have witnessed. Is born. Because within these walls, the unholy is unleashed. Hellraiser, a film by Clive Barker.
We'll tear your soul apart.
Ooh, Hellraiser. Honestly, I never saw this movie. It was my first time watching this. And now I can see why people have this love to this movie. So Hellraiser is about this guy who acquires this black box and made a ritual in his attic. But then, of course, he disappears. The box is taken by some guy, and then sometime later, the abandoned house is occupied by his brother and his second wife. Second wife who is not too keen to his husband because she had an affair with the brother. And in the process of moving, the guy accidentally cuts his hand, and a drip of blood into the attic that resurrects that guy from the dead in a mangled corpse way, and then he communicates with that wife and tell her that he needs more blood, so he can return fully back from the dead. So basically, she just seduces other men on her husband's back in order for seduce them into that attic, and then of course have this guy kill them and suck their blood. And the more blood he drinks, the more he returns to the flesh and everything. But in the meantime, of course, we got our main character, who is the daughter and she basically, of course, doesn't like that her stepmother, that so much that she moved into another place to live by herself. And of course, she gets into the hands of that black bug, which apparently this bug, when solved, it kind of opens the how can I say, the gates of hell, and basically this is where these creatures known as I think it was the Deadites or something like that. I don't remember. Deadites, I think it's the name of the creature from Evil Dead. But basically, it's those creatures from hell that basically anyone who solves the puzzle, they take their body and soul in order to torture them in hell. And this guy, the guy who used it, he basically escaped from them. So he's doing all his evil deeds on the back of them. So yeah, it's kind of complicated, I'll say, but in a way, I can see why people are interested in it, because what was it? The denizens of hell is mostly the biggest highlight of this movie. Even the special effects are really good for a movie of this time period. And I like the creativity that it has. You might, and I bet that you might be thinking, okay, you're talking about Hellraiser, so where Pinhead comes from? Well, Pinhead is this character that he's not named Pinhead in the movie, but he is well known. That I've been hearing about this guy in one way or another, and I was like, okay, what's the big deal with this guy? Well, basically, it's one of those denizens, and I can see why people are terrified of this guy. But I think that Pinhead is kind of like the least terrifying of all the creatures. There are other creatures that are more terrifying, but nevertheless, the hellish effects are I'll say that are magnificent. I think some of them are props and very little computer effects, which it takes, which is again a charm from that, an art that has been missing from many years, I would say. Now that we are now in computer generated era, this is something that I've been missing. As far as from the characters, I'm not gonna say that they're pretty memorable here and there, but you can tell that all the actions of the stepmother is awful. She is an awful person in a way that you want to wait for the moment that she gets what she deserves. And yeah, that the guy is also an awful person, and you can't wait for them to have what they deserve. And the biggest tension with the movie is looking how things are gonna solve, and kind of again wrangle your head out telling the father guy, saying that, dude, this woman is not worth it. When you're gonna see that? So I can see why Hellraiser is one hell of a time.
La leyenda dice que si te agarra la noche caminando por la calle de la Nahuala, debes tener mucho cuidado. Pero mi papá no era miedoso como el chisguete.
Ay. Los alepijes somos mitad de un animal, mitad de otro, y la otra mitad es pura cola.
A esa cena del Día de Muertos.
La leyenda de la Nahuala.
Coming all the way from Mexico, we got La Leyenda de la Nahuala. the first of many movies from Mexico about this seemingly franchise of movies known as leyendas, which is legends. So I've been hearing a bit about this one, and since I wanted to give a chance to foreign animated movies, this is why I decided to go with La Leyenda de la Nahuala, or Legend of the Nahuala. According to from what I heard, Nahuala is actually kind of like a small story of Mexico, which basically Nahuala means a water shaman. I'm sorry if I'm not 100% accurate on the from what I saw, because apparently Nahuala, looking at for the internet, it feels kind of very limited, and most of the information that I got, they always link it to the movie, and which in this basically according to even in the movie, Nahuala, which is also kind of I think it's the name of a town, or I think that it also literally means water shaman. It's about this elderly witch who, in order to keep herself alive, she basically kill off some adults on a Dia de los Muertos party, and she wanted to suck the souls of 3 children, but then just in time the church comes and rescue one of the kids, except for 2 of them, and so they seal that witch in the house. So they call it kind of like the house of the Nahuala or something like that, where you hear her, you hear her screaming and everything. So the movie actually takes place kind of like in the 1950s Mexico, in which it centers about this kid named Leo, a very shy and scaredy cat kid who he's often bullied by his brother named Nando, telling him scary stories, always teasing him because the kid can wet his pants so much that he begins to call him chisguete. Chisguete is the Spanish term for squirt, because he wets his pants. And they live with the grandmother and also the housekeeper, which is this woman who has the tendency to go on saying really, really bad jokes. She's kind of like she's kind of like a very overly joyous, happy-go-lucky person. And also the kid had his friend with the friar of the church, who apparently also does inventions. But of course the story happens while making a delivery, making a bread delivery, and acquiring a medallion from another guy. He stumbles in front of the house of the Nahuala, where his brother begins to tease him, and then out of nowhere the house sucks his brother inside the house, and of course it is up to Leo to go in the house and rescue his big brother, even though he was a bully and everything. You know, family things. Now for the movie itself. I want to be kind with this movie. I want to say that this movie is a good movie. I want to tell it that you did a good job, despite your low budget. But I have to play devil's advocate. And I must say that it's not a good movie. I'm sorry to say this, Mexico, but this is not a good movie. And granted, this movie became very popular, and the franchise became very popular in Mexico, mostly because people they want to support their own art, and that is good. But I think that Latin America, or in this case Mexico, can do better when it's about animation. And this movie isn't. Because first of all, the script it has a good idea, but it's kind of a mess. there is almost no organization of where the movie wants to go. We see the journey of this kid, and the series of events where he goes is mostly checkpoints that basically kind of goes nowhere. He meets people, he meets ghosts, but there's not exactly a resemblance of a journey there, because you don't feel attached to that. Sometimes it is only used to become kind of a series of gags. Most notably because they wanted to add a kind of like a gag in which the kid is being followed by two little skeleton kids, in which most of the time they're just there standing on the background. Or when they decide to focus on these, it's only just to kind of like a small scene in order to entertain the kids. And you know what? That's not a good idea, because when you're technically pandering to the kids by showing their keys and saying, "Hey, we're a kids movie." You're just doing this because you basically know how to do an animation, but doesn't follow exactly the principles of cinematography. And of course, there are also the other subplots which involve this the guy who gave Leo the medallion, the friar trying to help the others. And as much as I want to tell you how much of a mess of this movie, it will take a more kind of like how can I say, a more throughout research and a throughout essay to talk about it. But this is not the case, and this is just kind of a small, kind of like a vlog of my thoughts trying to improvise on what I remember from the movie. But yeah, this is not exactly a good movie. Also, this movie also exaggerates on bells and whistles and sounds because it's a cartoon. It's a cartoon. Even the animation is not that good. Sometimes they break the law of 180-degree perspectives. Sometimes the action feels so uncoordinated and choppy that you technically don't know how they come from one place to another. There is a lack of shadows in some scenes, just out of convenience. So it's a movie that fails on its flow of action. And it's more noticeable the more the movie goes. At first it starts out okay, and then it falls apart, almost especially during the climax. This is where I begin to see all the flaws of the movie. And when I mean that I wanted to be kind to this movie, unfortunately I can't, because I understand that I didn't want to expect some movies like, you know, a Pixar movie or a Disney movie or some high anime movie. No, I wasn't expecting something like that, but I know that Mexico can do better animated films. If you want to know, for example, better animated films that I remember seeing, look at movies like Katy la Oruga. That one is one of the good animated Mexican films. This one is not. I understand that it had a low budget, but a clever movie can make a low budget look good. But for this movie to even spawn out a franchise, it amazes me how it does. The quality of the movie, it does feel like a dollar budget DVD film. And for scares, it's not exactly that scary. I know that there's scene about people turning into skeletons, but it's not exactly that gory. And again, the jokes sometimes can be annoying in a way. So, La Leyenda of the Nahuala being the first of many movies, it wasn't exactly a good start. Maybe, if I feel curious, I could probably see the sequel movie, which it has to do with one of the one of the most known legends of Mexico, which is La Llorona. But for animation's sakes, I'm sorry, Mexico. La leyenda de la Nahuala is not a good animated movie.
House.
私あなたを救えなかった。
I see in your eyes where tomorrow is hiding in my heart. There's a bell ringing loud at the touch of your lips. Down the rainbow, I'm sliding. Little arrows keep falling as thick as a cloud.
かからないわ。故障よ。
Wow! Holy wow! Guys, what do you get if Toho decides to make a horror movie and they hire a director with the mentality of Walt Disney? If instead of doing charming animation, decided to make a live-action horror movie, and not in the style of Bride of Boogity or Mr. Boogity or something like that. You get probably one of the craziest Japanese horror movies that I have seen. Whew, House. This movie is having a following, and trust me guys, this is a movie that you have to see to believe. Because I'm gonna talk to you right now. If you haven't seen this movie, go and watch it, because this is as artsy as you can get from a J-horror movie. And it's an old one. And from Toho, by the way, the guys who brought you Godzilla. Whew. So, here's the basic plot of House. It's about this girl who is going to a summer vacation with her friends, at least in order to get away from her father and his new stepmother. She's upset that, of course, that her father is gonna ignore, he's gonna ignore, his wife and everything, and is dishonoring her. So basically, our main girl, she's very sad, and she receives a letter from her aunt, who lives kind of like in the middle of nowhere in a prairie, in the fields and everything. And she's like, yeah, come to my house, bring your friends, we're gonna have a nice summer. So she goes along with her friends and even her recently adopted cat, a white cat named Shiro. And they go to the house, and they see the old lady who walks on. She's on a wheelchair. The aunt, she kind of looks. What will you get if you get between a female version between Dr. Strangelove and Stan Lee? That's the strange mixture that I find on this one. Little that they know is that it is a haunted house. It's a haunted house that basically is feeding on the victims. This is basically as far as I can get to telling you most of the basics of the plot. Because what makes this movie amazing to watch is how it is portrayed and how silly some of the things goes. I mean, the first thing that you're gonna notice is that the name of the characters. The name of the girls, it has some of them, they're named by nicknames, and they're based on their personalities, and it's kind of like the most ridiculous thing that you can imagine. I mean, for example, our main character, her name is Gorgeous. The most intelligent, she's called Gary, which is short for professor in Japanese. The one who eats a lot, they call her Mac. The one who is sweet and bubbly, they call her Sweet. The one who likes to daydream, she's called Fanta or Fantasy. And the one who knows martial arts, she's named Kung Fu. Oh my god, it's kind of like we found the female version of the Seven Dwarfs. That's how ridiculous those names are. And then you're gonna get a lot of editing in which almost every single scene is almost like different director they decided to take over the movie. So you're gonna get between animation with cutout frames, with panoramic frames, or sometimes they have some what was it called, mosaic editing. Sometimes they have cutout animation, as basic as they can get from a movie that is that old. Sometimes it turns kind of like into a postcard movie, and you get music that apparently it's almost like watching a Beatles movie sometimes. And yeah, the movie kind of drags on, at least on the first 45 minutes, in which it gives you a chance to see what the freak am I watching. And then after that, finally after they get a little bit into the house, this is where the horror finally happens. And little by little, the girls begin to disappear and have their consequences. And boy, well, it's not exactly 100% gory. There is still kind of like a cheesy gore factor into it, in which they took advantage to make this movie as artsy as possible. So in ways it becomes kind of like a hilarious ride. But of course that in the sense of the movie, it does have a coherent pacing. They do know that they have to go almost through a script and some elements. I mean, yeah, they do actually a better job than the leyenda of the Nahuala. But man, that it only takes the climax in order to have one of the most bunker moments that you could ever see in probably any Japanese movie that I have seen far off, in which you're gonna see a lot of blood gushers, you're gonna see animation, you see editing, noises going here and out. It becomes so psychedelic that I don't know if this could top anything that you see from an Evil Dead movie. Oh my god, and talking about it is unfair. You gotta see this movie. It's so weird and so artsy that it is worth it. If I have to put also a little bit of a negative, is that there is a little bit of a subplot of a guy who tries to reach the house. He's basically kind of like the sensei in which one of the characters falls in love with. But let's say that this one kind of goes nowhere. He's basically the equivalent of the bumbling cops from that old movie, The House on the Left. But either way, boy, that house is full of House of Wax. This is just a house of wackiness. Japan, you're crazy. We need more movies like that.
All right, now son, this is the big day. You get to pick a piñata for the game.
This one.
We have a winner!
La Piñata. She does not understand his hatred. He only understands that he needs to avenge those that were bullied.
I wish we knew how to defeat it.
With weapons.
We don't have weapons, Scott.
Then let's make some.
Killer Piñata. Guys, Killer Piñata. Life sometimes teaches us that sometimes there are a lot of bad things, a lot of awful things. Things are done so awful. But when something so awful at least gives itself a reason to exist, this is when we get movies like Killer Piñata. Ah, guys. This movie should be on a pedestal alongside movies like Troll 2. Troll 2 may be the king of best worst movies, but Killer Piñata, guys, oh man. A movie about a piñata. A simple donkey piñata with rainbow colors that goes on a killing spree because it wants to avenge his fallen compatriots, his fellow piñatas. Is the perfect recipe for one of the most bullshit movie you could ever imagine, but a movie that I'm supposed to be angry, but no. This one deserves to be talked, and it's a high recommendation that you have to seem to believe. First of all, remember that I said in the leyenda of Nahuala that is basically that I wanted to apologize it, but I can't despite its low budget and limited knowledge to animation. This one, the biggest difference is that La Leyenda de Nahuala didn't come up with a good payoff and leaves out a bad impression, at least for movie lovers like me. But Killer Piñata, it gave me kind of like a big smile on my face of the weird things that they do. And you know that this is a movie that it was shot in just 8 days. And these people, they just decided to just have some fun with it. And everything they do is bad. And I can tell that when you make a movie purposely bad, but you come out seeing that the actors did have some fun with it. This one did it. Because, oh my god, everything fails in this movie. Cinematography, story, some continuity. But once you stick long enough, this is as wacky as it can get. Because first of all, there's very little special effects on the Killer Piñata itself. It barely moves. And sometimes when it moves, you can tell that it's clearly someone on the back. You know, like wearing, you know, your stuffed teddy bear and like going like... Sorry about that, Spencer. And sometimes they even make they cut in ways in which they make the doll, you know, move like this. But the biggest thing also about this movie is that inside the movie, how the character kind of take things so seriously in a very, very silly plot. I mean, for starters, I mean, imagine that it starts off with the piñata being sold just willy-nilly by probably kind of like the most unenthusiastic clerk you could ever see. He just sells the cursed piñata just because they just put a sign on him that say, "Do not sell this guy." Okay. And the scene in which, there's even a scene in which they finally break out some piñatas, and they make this slow-mo of the things taking it so seriously, in which they go like, "Yeah, kill the piñata." Then we have, of course, a group of characters that you don't even care. It's just teenagers doing party stuff. And one of the first victims is technically a fat guy that I think it was called Martin, who kind of looked like the looser brother of Chris Farley. I don't know. And the piñata is being searched by this crazy Latina old lady who she even breaks into a birthday party of some kid just to beat up a piñata and go, "Maldita piñata! Piñata de vida!" And guess what? This lady only serves purpose only to tell the backstory of the cursed piñata, in which they made it in animated form. Like it's like kind of like the Krampus, but the difference is that it's not stop motion animation, but this time it's kind of like a poor cutout animation, which basically it is the killer Piñata is the soul of a man who worked in a Piñata factory in which he was bullied, in which they call it a prank, and he gets killed and his blood gets into that Piñata and he goes look for revenge. It's a total mess, guys. It's a total mess. But boy, that this movie, oh my god, guys, my god. I'll give you some highlights just in case, because there are 3 moments in this movie. 3 moments in which I had to stop the movie to give myself a second to process of what I have seen. You know what? I'll tell you because I had to blurt it out. I mean, the first time is when the Piñata finally comes alive and he meets this weird creepy guy and he's like, hey, do you have some cake? And the Piñata he just stands there and then it turns around and it begins to shit out candy with diarrhea noise, you know, like this moment stays like for kind of like 20 seconds of shitting out candy. And then the guy, he just stands there like he just talked to a store manager from a candy shop, not questioning 1 second that he's talking to a living Piñata. He just stands there, and then the Piñata finished shitting, and then he's like, do you have strawberry candy? And in 10 seconds more of the Piñata shitting out strawberry candy, he's like, oh, thanks. And then he dies off because the candy's poison. I had to stop the movie just to give me a minute. This is one of the many moments in which there's also kind of like the scene in which the Piñata technically penetrates a woman while she was having sex with another guy, and then the Piñata force feeds him the poisonous candy, and then the guy begins to barf, and then we got this slow-mo barf killing scene in which it lasts like, I'm gonna think like a minute and a half with classical music, which this is the moment that I stop. And the third time that I stop, when they finally decide to kill off the Piñata, in which they give us the stupidest line that you could ever imagine about making weapons. And somehow they managed to create, with items that you can find in the garage. Then somehow they managed to create a cross and Hunger Games bow and arrows and a freaking shotgun that they never use. Oh. Okay, if I have to go into faults of the movie can get very slow, and a lot of the scenes can get really, really dull. I mean, there's unnecessary scenes. Like, for example, there's shots of the main couple just watching a movie. I didn't even know what movie it is, and it feels totally unnecessary. And again, not all the characters are kind of unlikable. The main protagonist is technically a bitch. The guy is really, really horny to have sex with her, but I'll give you this. This dude, even I don't care if I'm gonna spoil it, but I'm gonna tell you this. This dude, he dies in the most awesome way. Let's say that the guy gets what he wants, and he dies like, yay! Honestly, guys, for a really, really low budget movie that was only filmed in 8 days, you must see this to believe it. I don't recommend you watch it, but at the same time recommend you to also watch it because this movie is everything wrong, but boy, it is something that you have to see to believe. And it's gonna be even hard to believe that this movie is being crowdfunded for a sequel.
Mark. Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Grave Encounters. Psychiatric hospitals like this were seen as sort of a dumping ground for embarrassing family members rather than a place that they could go to actually get help.
Many of them were severely disturbed. It's truly frightening.
I swear to God that I saw someone right at the end of the hall there.
And he swears that something pushed him off the ladder.
So you guys see this window here? Lock it up real good at night. Come back in the morning. Sometimes this thing's wide open.
Is there someone here with us?
What was that?
What if this is something real?
Did you get that?
TC, you rolling, man? Yeah. I'm gonna document everything because when we get out of this place, people are gonna want to see this.
Matt and Houston are gone. I just need to focus on finding a way out.
What?
There's something over there.
Where are you?
Hey, who are you? How come you're in here?
Jesus Christ, what's happening to us? Why is this happening? Do you hear that?
It's time for the found footage of the year. I gotta be honest, guys. I was almost never too interested in these kind of pseudo-documentary shows like Ghost Encounters, because in a way I know that these things are technically fake, in which these people fake all these ghost encounters footage and everything. Still, that doesn't mean that that there is a possibility about the existence of ghosts or anything, but this is something that it could require a more difficult ways to trying to prove out that there is life after death or something like that. And honestly, the more when I began to grow up and seeing all these shows, like Ghost Encounters, I began to realize that most of these are fabricated things out of sensationalism and all these things. And the biggest, and my final nail to the coffin is when I saw this movie called Demon House. Demon House was an awful film. They claim itself to be a documentary, but it's more like a mockumentary. So when we get a movie like Grave Encounters, which takes the concept of pseudo paranormal investigators making some kind of documentary reality show of then ghost huntings and pitting them with real paranormal events. This is when the movie is a big win, at least to me. I like the concept. And you know, every found footage film is basically technically the same. Some guys, they just decide to film because they think it's a good idea to film everything too for prosperity's sake. But this one, taking the approach that it kind of wants to mock these kind of ghost investigation shows, it's a little bit of a fresh thing to me. In this case, Grave Encounters is about these group of people who they are from this show, also known as Grave Encounters. They decided to go inside this abandoned insane asylum in which it has technically a history of people with mental health who are being interned there. They are badly treated, and there was also this head doctor who begins to make inhumane experiments with the mentally disabled until he gets killed by, of course, the people there. And of course, at the beginning of the movie, you're going to see that the film crew are technically a bunch of assholes. There is kind of like the head guy who he thinks that he's doing everything right. He got the cameraman, the guy with the sex, the girl, for lack of better off, and there's also the guy who he's basically an actor who plays out like a medium, but you know that he's just spouting bullshit. There's even a moment in which they just pay off some guy to say, hey, tell a story, make up. So just say that you saw something in the night or here and there. So the crew, in order to film the episode, they decided to spend the night on the abandoned insane asylum. Little did they know that this is gonna be the final episode because the ghosts there are real. And when these things happen, I'm not gonna lie, the first time that I saw this movie, I was invested. I get invested with the things that happen, even though I know that that is basically following the footsteps of a found footage film. But it does the things right. You know that these people are a couple of assholes, but they're not asshole-ish enough to make you not care for them. In a way, you're gonna notice that the events that they have is honestly creepy. I want to tell you guys that spending yourself inside an abandoned place is by far, of course, one of the scariest things. I mean, you don't know what's in there. Although it's not exactly that you're gonna find ghosts, but what will happen if you find signs of rituals, or sometimes you find a criminal sleeping there, is creepy, that's one thing for starters. And I like the idea that the ghosts, they also managed to screw with the team by having the house technically manipulating the space between them. So even if they want to get out, they can't. They make some logical moments. There are some stupid moments. Then we have, of course, find the resident crazy people, in which you're gonna find that some of the special effects they haven't aged very well. But by the time you kind of only believe it. Like, for example, you've seen in the trailer that when they see this crazy woman, whenever she sees the head, you see this basic effect like, ah. But there's some other moments that I'm not gonna dare to reveal to you, but it's indeed, when you think about it, it's indeed kind of like a creepy experience. So much that seeing the characters sink into insanity is disturbing at best. Even the climax, in which I find the climax disturbing in one way or another. When you have technically a character that it gets so insane and so desperate for survive that even that he even technically soil his dignity by beating out a rat in order to eat the meat raw, like, you can tell that there is a sense of despair on on this movie. So in the end, I'll say that Grave Encounters, I'll say that, well, it's not the greatest movie ever. I will say that it's probably one of the better found footage films that there is, considering that it is a genre that can be easily tiresome.
This is the party. We've been planning this for weeks.
The invitation said murder party. If some jackass is dumb enough to come here, then he deserves to die.
Look, I don't think we actually thought someone would be stupid enough to show up.
It's a white male, he's perfect.
Think beyond splattering blood on canvas. When our masterpiece is complete, and the coroner's report is back in, it will read the cause of death. Art. Happy Halloween.
Everybody dies.
Where are you? Everybody dies. Everybody's gotta go.
Jeez, I hope I don't end up like this guy. Oh man. So, okay, Murder Party. It's about this guy who he's lonely on Halloween. He just read some movies on VHS. The cat doesn't let him get his seat. So by sheer coincidence, he finds an invitation that says, "Come to my murder party. We're gonna have some Halloween fun and everything." And the guy is like, "Why not?" So he makes himself a disguise, which is basically just cardboard that he meticulously turned it into an armor that makes him look like a Monty Python and the Holy Grail armor, but made of cardboard. He even makes some pumpkin bread. And he goes to this supposed murder party. Little that he knows that a murder party is not exactly just like, this murder mystery parties that people do it. No. This one is indeed a murder party. He just stumbled into a couple of people who they indeed are planning to murder someone. And since he stumbled along with the invitation, they decide that they want to kill him. They capture him and they wait for this for this guy in order to impress him, because apparently they're just planning to kill him in the most artistic ways, and the more artsy it is, they're gonna get rewarded. So basically, our main character, he's just basically trapped with a couple of crazy people who basically, you know that these guys, they don't like each other, they get into the nerves. Tension begins to fall between them when one of them dies because basically that person eats the pumpkin bread that our main character did. But he added raisins and that character is allergic. So much that with an allergic reaction, it falls and bops its head into an iron pipe and dies. And of course, they hide the body. This is basically a comedy, I'll say. A comedy that the most interesting things about this movie is how to see one character just watching all these maniacs, trying to find putting ideas on how they're gonna kill the guy, how they decided that we're gonna kill it at midnight, and this is kind of like a good idea, how they want to do it. The tension begins to grow between each other. You're gonna know the kind of like the relationship between one criminal to another, which one is crazier than the other, one they don't trust each other, and sometimes even our main character in ways to survive, he just technically is forced to even partake on different games, on the games that they do. Like for example, they kind of make it kind of like this truth or dare situation to the extreme, where they inject themselves with truth serum. Boy, that it. The best way I can describe this movie is that imagine if you are in the world of Alice in Wonderland, but Alice is technically more surrounded by psychotic killers. Why do I get the feeling I'm talking about American McGee Alice? That's the best, but yeah, the tensions get higher and higher, and of course it ends up with this giant climax in which it gets bloody. I'm not gonna exactly reveal you everything about this movie. This is an independent film that is worth a watch. It was independent, maybe it is because the movie it was shown on a festival. But it's an interesting watch, and many people have seen it. They do tend to like it. I did. I watched this movie twice, and I do have some kind of artsy inspiration out of it. Man, when I say artsy, I felt like I'm one of these people. So, overall, I do give Murder Party a high recommendation.
Hey, I found something.
What is that? It's a camera. Are you ready?
Is anybody there?
What's that?
Camera.
Where'd you get it?
I work at this antique store. This is so cool.
Try it out on me. Group photo. Come
Yes. Smile.
Tyler's dead.
What? I think you're all in danger. What are you talking about? You see that shadow? After Tyler died, the shadow moved to this photo. I think if the shadow moves to your photo, you die.
If it really freaks you out, we can get rid of the damn thing.
Don't.
Problem solved.
What the?
Sometimes to deal with tragedies, we make up urban legends.
Except this wasn't an urban legend. This was real.
He's coming. You did this. You took the photo.
It's moving.
Get the door!
Hello?
Let me tell you guys, sometimes when I pick movies, doesn't necessarily mean that I have to pick the best movie there is, or the worst that is that is good, or so bad is good, or bad is laughable. Sometimes you also have to pick up some of the worst things you could see, or the most boring things, or in the case of this movie, a movie that is definitely bad. But I only got attracted to it because Polaroid is one of those films that it had the tendency to, well, no tendency, it has the gall of being shelved. Because I remember watching the trailers of this movie years ago, and then it kind of disappeared. I was like, what the hell happened? Until they finally released it on Netflix, finally decided to watch it because I want to know is that movie so bad that they decided to shelve it? And the answer is yes. This movie is bad. That I think this movie has the same reasons why Amityville Awakening was also shelved. Because Amityville Awakening was a movie so bad that it was so boring that the day I rented, I couldn't even finish watching the movie because I just fell asleep. This one, whew. This one is, I'm not gonna say that is the worst movie you've ever seen, but it's one of the boring films because it has the worst thing you could put on a horror movie. The limitations of PG-13. So the movie is about this group of teenagers. One of them finds this old camera. You know what? I don't remember what type of camera it is. I'll put it here to tell you what. But it's one of those old cameras that when you take a photo, it gives you the instantaneous picture. But instead of that, instead of just the picture shows that there's some kind of shadowy figure alongside the people who are in the picture. And then this shadowy thing, which is apparently some kind of ghost, it hunts the person in the picture and basically goes to kill them. And yeah, you can't just get rid of the photo because what happens to the photo, it also happens to the person in it. If you find this plot a little bit similar to this episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark and the plot of Say Cheese and Die from the Goosebumps series, partially it's true. It's true that it is about a haunted camera that can kill people. And I really would have loved to see kind of like an adult, gorier version of that Afraid of the Dark or Goosebumps series. But this movie didn't. All of it is just teenagers acting, you know, like the typical slasher, well, children, because I don't know how old these people are. And we go with a boring pacing. We got even the main character who is kind of so boring that even in the almost in the middle of the movie, she even forgets her character trait. Because let's say that this character, they call her like the scarf girl because she always wears a scarf for some reason. And once she loses her scarf, they forgot that she was supposed to be the scarf girl. That's how boring this character is. And the other characters, of course, are cliches, like for example, the best friend, the boyfriend, the couple that are in love, and then the guy kind of becomes the jackass. Not even the kills are memorable. They're all, they're either bloodless or off screen, which makes this really unappealing. And with a shottier shot, no, and not even the ghost is that interesting. You know what? I'll reveal you just in case, because at least I'll give it credit to the movie that it tried to give out some kind of twist, because basically it is the ghost of a killer who killed off some high school children. And when the police found him and they shot him, he died with the camera in it, and then the ghost technically possessed that camera in order to continue his evil deeds. And then they go to the widow of the killer, in which she begins to say this backstory that he just did it out of revenge because the high school children are actually bullies. They tormented this his daughter, and she commits suicide. And so the guy the guy did it out of revenge, and in order to get revenge, he of course took pictures because he was a photographer. And of course, one of the bullies that survived is none other than the police officer, which also brings out the typical plot about the police trying not to believe on this this cockamamie story. But then, of course, it reveals a twist that everything is actually in reverse, in which he and his friends were actually guys who were concerned because the daughter was actually the one who's been abused by the killer. And he said, yeah, I got proof with this because, look, she died after we killed the guy. She just committed suicide. She just committed suicide because she couldn't handle the fact that her father died. And to give it credit, the death of this guy is the most creative, but yet they ruin it. Because remember that I say that whatever happens to the photo, it happens to the person. Imagine that the girl just takes the photo because they took a picture of this the policeman, and the guy gets ripped in half because the girl rips it in half, and you see it, but there's no blood. Of course, even the climax feels so convenient, and the ending is a really toned down. And with that, I managed to see why Polaroid stayed on the shelf, because I can tell this movie was gonna flop either way. Be my guest if you want to watch it. It's on Netflix, but I'll tell you, this movie has no enjoyment out of it. This movie is not even worth the price of a picture frame.
Hey, Wrinkles, I need you to come get these kids. Yeah, I got a child that's misbehaving. $30, come scare them.
I found out about Wrinkles through a news story.
Meet Southwest Florida's Wrinkles the Clown. Hi, Wrinkles. I'm a reporter at the Washington Post.
I'm a reporter at the Naples Daily News.
I've just seen your story blow up online.
You can call him, he'll scare people for you.
You've reached Wrinkles the Clown.
You're scaring little people that can't defend themselves.
I'll take this baseball bat and beat your brains in.
You don't know if he's trying to do this for fun or trying to kill you. It's like a boogeyman situation.
Oh my God!
We know that there's a human underneath, and yet you don't know his identity, and that creeps people out.
You better be afraid of Rink. He's real.
By calling him, you're essentially inviting him into your life.
You know, no one was hiring me when I was just a regular clown. I just thought, hey, maybe I'll give it a little edge.
You've reached Wrinkles the Clown. Leave me a message, I'll call you back.
Guys, there's something outside.
And now we end up this Halloween special by watching a documentary called Wrinkles the Clown. Which is based on of course, this viral video about this clown called Wrinkles, which, according to what the story is basically about this guy who you call this guy in order to scare off naughty children for a fee and everything, kind of like a hitman, but instead of killing children, he just basically scared the living daylights out of them with this creepy mask and this creepy costume, which technically, apparently, it sensationalized these group of videos, which is about some people going around the streets in creepy clown costumes. I don't know if you remember that. One of those videos is, of course, of that clown, Wrinkles the Clown. This is, unlike Demon House, this documentary of Wrinkles the Clown is actually worth the watch because it technically explains how this phenomenon kind of started out and about the testimony of the people who they are fascinated of this scary clown. You see people talking about how a symbol that is supposed to be about laughter, they just become the symbols of being scary. You see the videos of the clown just going around scaring children. You see people trying to call out the phone number because there is a hotline phone number of Wrinkles the Clown in order to call him and say that, hey, I want you to scare this kid because he's being acting naughty here and there. And yeah, I can see it's creepy. The kids also they begin to talk about their testimony about the creepy clown. There's a little bit of dramatization about the clown kidnapping a kid, even though that part, is dramatization. And also there are certain moments in which they did manage to get the actor who plays Wrinkles the Clown, because the identity of this clown is anonymous. It is anonymous, but you see that it's technically this washed-out guy with a technically kind of like a redneck personality, and he's like, I did this job because I gotta do that. So you see him that he's technically an asshole, a redneck asshole, with the white beard, living on a trailer, doing his ends meet, and he's like, my father just hit me, and I just do this all for the money here and there. There you see him cooking. People are talking about, you see the children giving their testimony about how they're scared of the clown, and sometimes some children even dare to challenge the clown. The guy is like, receiving all this mail or sort of like that, or something like that. At this point, I want to stop. Stop and watch this documentary. Because from this point, I'm going to talk to you something really, really important. Once I take out my hand, I'm going to start out. Have you seen the movie yet? Are you ready? There? Time. Here's what makes this documentary this is where I give my documentary the respects. Halfway through the whole documentary, it is revealed that everything was fake. The guy who was the redneck, he was actually an actor, and all this Wrinkles the Clown thing is actually fake. You might get disappointed, but no, they did actually get the real guy, but this time they made a better job on keeping his identity secret. Even they disguise his voice. But here's the thing, this is where the movie takes a 180-degree turn. The guy begins to talk and say that it was just all a viral video. Everything was acted. The Wrinkles the Clown videos, it's just a video that went viral. And this is where you kind of begin to see that, it's amazing how the media is so powerful to make us believe that there are people who are basically traumatizing children, when all of these were actually just a group of filmmakers just doing a passionate project, and the thing is so well made that you can't that you have no choice but to applaud them. And it becomes fascinating. You see how they did it, how they do it, and it ends with a nice note, I'll say. So basically, And this is all I have to say about Wrinkles the Clown, and this is the reason why I decided that this was the perfect movie to cap off my Halloween special. Oh, well, you look at that. It is time for me to finally finish this Halloween special. You know, we may be stuck on this 2020 and all these problems, but here's the thing I want to tell you. Halloween, Christmas, it's not just about going outside. It's keeping the festivities in our hearts. Just have some fun. Even though you're just staying here watching movies and everything. And you know what? For me, it's not exactly a bad idea to watch horror movies all day long. Happy Halloween, everyone!